Someone falls on the subway platform. 30 people see it happen. Nobody moves. Not because they don't care, because every single one of them is caught in the exact same psychological trap. Someone else will handle it. And before you tell yourself you'd be different, the science says you probably wouldn't. Not because you're a bad person, because the moment a crowd forms, your brain runs an automatic calculation that silently locks you in place. This is the bystander effect. And the newest research flips everything you know about it in a way that almost nobody is talking about. Let's start with the story that started all of this. March 13, 1964. Queens, New York. 3 a.m. A woman named Kitty Genovese was attacked walking home from work. The New York Times rumbled the nation with a shocking report. 38 neighbors watched her struggle, and nobody called the police. It sparked a national wave of self-reflection. Two psychologists, John Darley and Bib Latane, read it and asked a radical question. What if those neighbors weren't monsters? What if it was the size of the crowd itself that paralyzed them? Decades later, science proved the 38 witnesses story was heavily exaggerated by the press. But the psychological trigger it uncovered was terrifyingly real. So they went to the lab. They pumped smoke into a room where a participant sat completely alone. The individual noticed the danger and reported it 75% of the time. Then they changed the environment. They put a participant in a room with two actors who were secretly instructed to ignore the smoke. Surrounded by passive bystanders, the real participant reported the smoke only 10% of the time. 10. The room was filling with thick smoke. People were coughing. Visibility was fading. And they just sat there. Not because they lacked courage, because they looked around, saw that nobody else was reacting, and their brains reached a fatal conclusion. If no one is moving, this probably isn't an emergency. Now, look closer at your own life. This trap isn't just waiting for you on dark streets. It happens in the group chat, or someone drops a critical question and everyone leaves it unread, because everyone assumes someone else will type. It happens on the project team, where an open shared task sits untouched for weeks, because when everyone is responsible, no one is responsible. The more minds involved, the less any single mind acts. And here's the hardest truth. This has almost nothing to do with your morality. It has everything to do with how the brain misinterprets a room full of frozen people. The science explains exactly why this paralysis happens, and it also reveals a massive twist that changes the entire equation. Let's talk about what's actually going on. Darley and Latane ran another experiment, this one even more direct. Students sat in separate booths and talked to each other over an intercom. One of them, an actor, started having a severe medical seizure, coughing, choking, cry for help. When a student was led to believe they were the only one listening, 85% rushed out to get help, fast. When they thought two others were listening too, that number dropped to 62%. And when they believed 5 others were on the line, only 31% moved. Think about it. Same emergency, same audio, same human suffering. The only variable was the crowd size in their heads. More people, less action. Darley and Latane called this diffusion of responsibility. When 10 people share a burden, each brain automatically runs a dangerous math. I am only 1/10 responsible. Not because you're selfish, because that's the autopilot mode of human nature, the moment it detects a crowd. The second mechanism is subtler, and in some ways, scarier. Remember the smoke room? People didn't stay because they were waiting for a hero. They stayed because they looked around, saw that nobody else was panicking, and misread that collective freezing as safety. Psychologists call this pluralistic ignorance. When everyone in a room is looking at everyone else for cues, everyone sees everyone else doing nothing. So the silence builds, and the smoke fills the room, and everybody waits for somebody who isn't coming. Now, here is where the science takes a breathtaking turn. In 2020, a team led by Richard Philpott did something the old psychologists couldn't do. They bypassed the labs. They analyzed actual security camera footage from 219 real-world violent conflicts across the UK, the Netherlands, and South Africa. Real danger, real adrenaline. And they counted how often people stepped in. The result? 91% of the time, at least one bystander intervened. Not 10%, not 31%, 91. So, does this mean the old studies were wrong? No. It means we've been reading them wrong. The lab studies showed that a crowd freezes individual willpower, but the real-world data shows that a larger crowd increases the statistical chance that someone will break the spell. And the ultimate catalyst is clarity. The bystander effect paralyzes us when a situation is ambiguous. Is that a prank? Is it a private family fight? When we don't know, pluralistic ignorance locks us in place. But a 2011 meta-analysis by Tobias Fisher confirmed, when danger is undeniable and the need is crystal clear, the math completely flips. More witnesses can actually mean more help faster. Because a larger crowd provides safety in numbers, lowering the cost of stepping in. The bystander effect is real, but it is not an absolute law of human apathy. It is a psychological knot tied by 3 specific conditions: shared responsibility, ambiguity, and collective silence. And if you can untie just one of those knots, you change the outcome. Here's exactly how. 3 conditions trigger the bystander effect: shared responsibility, ambiguity, and collective silence. 3 fixes, 1 to destroy each. Fix 1. If you are the one who needs help, isolate an individual. Do not scream, "Someone help me." You, in the red jacket, call 911. That is it. 1 specific target, 1 absolute instruction. Darley and Latany discovered this themselves. The moment responsibility is pinned onto one single person, the diffusion evaporates because it is no longer shared. Now, it is yours. At work, banish the shared void. Someone look into this issue means nobody looks into it. Sarah, I need your update on this by Thursday means Sarah owns it. The solution isn't adding more people. It's subtracting the ambiguity of ownership. Fix 2. If you see something suspicious, voice the reality out loud. Pluralistic ignorance feeds entirely on silence. The split second one person speaks, the hypnotic loop breaks. Because now everyone in the room has a brand new signal. This is an active problem. It does not have to be a heroic speech. On the street, step closer, look at them, and say, "Are you okay?" Out loud. That single question rewrites the script for every witness watching. In a broken group chat or a stalled meeting, let's pause here. Something is going wrong. 8 words. That is the whole intervention. You don't have to solve the crisis. You just have to be the one who forces the room to acknowledge it exists. Once you break the ice, the collective paralysis shatters. Because silence was the only thing holding them back. Fix 3. Ask yourself one definitive question before you let your brain look for an escape. If I were completely alone here, would I act? If the answer is yes, then the frozen crowd around you isn't giving you safe information. It is giving you a moral alibi. This is the true lesson of Philpott's 91%. Human beings inherently want to step in when the stakes are clear. What traps us is the gray zone, the hesitation of, is this real? And in that gray zone, the crowd doesn't help you evaluate. It helps you abdicate. Collapse the gray zone yourself. One question, one answer, then move. 3 fixes. Name someone, crush the diffusion. Say it out loud, shatter the ignorance. Ask if you'd act alone, eliminate the alibi. None of these require rare courage. They just require outsmarting the automatic math of your own brain and moving before the calculation finishes you. You are not a bad person because you've been a bystander. You are simply a human being whose brain was reading the room, and the room was feeding it all the wrong signals. But now you know exactly what those signals are. Which means, from this moment on, you can override them. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been in a situation where you didn't act and later you wished you had? You don't have to share the details. Just tell me, did your brain tell you someone else would handle it? Next video, we are looking at the halo effect. Why your mind automatically decides everything about a person's character based on just one single trait. And how this single glitch heavily dictates who gets hired, who gets promoted, and who gets away with things far longer than they should. I'll see you then.